Members of the public, I'm just going to give it 2 to 3 minutes before we start, all right?
Ek sukkel om in te kom hoor. Jamil,
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the chamber. As you can see, it's not as imposing as everybody thinks it is. We're going to start off our meeting with a moment for quiet reflection and meditation, please. Thank you. To the honorable members who will introduce themselves to the meeting, welcome. To Advocate Leroux and Notando, thank you. Welcome to you. Welcome to each and every member of the public. I understand we have people from Kayamandi. Yes. From, is it Clutisville or Cluterville? Is that die Stellenbosch? Clutisville. Baie welkom. De Nova and Mitchell's Plain. Welcome to everybody. Well, I hope you feel welcome. I'm going to ask that the members just introduce themselves both in the chamber and online so that everybody knows who the members are. I'm starting with myself. My name is Christopher Fry. I'm the chairperson of the Standing Committee on the Premier and Constitutional Matters.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming. My name is Cameron Dugmore. I'm a member of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. To the members online.
Good afternoon, Deirdre Bartman.
Member Pretorius? No? Okay, we'll move on. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason for I need to introduce now the officials. I see 2 officials in the chamber. Oh, yes, Member Pretorius coming in. No worries, no worries. If you could just introduce yourself to the meeting for the purpose of the recording.
I'm Gerrit Pretorius. I'm late, my apologies.
That's no problem.
I'm a member of the committee. Thank you.
Advocate Leroux.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andre Leroux. I'm the Senior Legal Advisor of Provincial Parliament.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Lutando Petros. I'm the legal intern in the Legal Support Unit of Parliament. Thank
you. The officials online can introduce themselves, please.
Good afternoon, Chair Nicholas Dias, Legal Services, Department of the Premier.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see you there. Sorry. The officials online, Ms. Elliott.
Good afternoon, Lorica Elliott, Speaker's Office.
Good afternoon, members. Good afternoon, colleagues. Yanni Ace, Speaker's Office.
That's it, I think. Yeah. Okay. The reason for this public hearing is that the amendment bill, which is the Constitution of the Western Cape Amendment Bill B6 of 2023, which is the determination of the number of members of the House. So the one question you'd obviously ask is why is this bill before our committee? Because the speaker introduced the bill into the House and referred the bill to our committee, as we are, as I said earlier, we are responsible for constitutional matters, and this is a Western Cape Constitution Amendment Bill. Why this bill is so important is that we're here to listen, number one. We're here to listen to the input from Advocate Leroux and then the input from you, the members of the public. But more members would mean smaller areas of responsibility and an increased ability for members to serve their constituencies. It will also mean that more members will provide for more committee meetings and more regular oversight visits, and thereby improving service delivery. And finally, more members would mean more committee meetings and opportunities to engage with you, the public. So we had a Facebook advertising campaign for these public hearings. We've had public hearings in George and Saldanha Bay so far. This is the third one. We will have 2 further ones in Zwelihle and in Paarl. Sorry, that slipped my mind there for a second. In Paarl and Zwelihle later in September and October. We also had a Facebook advertising campaign about this. I don't know if you saw it on our Facebook page. It had 323,525 people reached. The advertising for the public hearings was also sent to mayors, municipal managers, and speakers of all the Western Cape municipalities. And the Public Outreach and Education Unit also informed the public of the database of these hearings. So that's how I hope that you had been made to know about these hearings, and now that you're in the chamber. I will now ask Advocate Leroux from the Speaker's Office to brief us on the bill and the mechanizations of the bill and what the bill actually entails. Thank you, Advocate Leroux.
Chairperson, thank you. If I'm not speaking clearly or I'm not sitting close enough to the mic, just give me a heads up. I tend to do that. Chairperson, thank you. Legal support just is in the office of the secretary. Let me just see whether I can just quickly flight this presentation. There we go. Okay, just maybe to start with a few introductory comments. So we'll get to the details of the introduction of the bill, but the bill was introduced into the House in July of this year. So maybe to explain at this point in time, the bill it's a proposal to the committee, and as the chairperson already indicated, it's for the committee to decide whether the committee approves of the bill the way it is or whether they want to amend it. So the bill is a point of departure, but that's not necessarily the ultimate product. That will ultimately depend on the decisions that the committee makes and the recommendations it makes to the House. Some parts of the slide is quite technical, so there are parts of the slides which I will probably go over. My colleague Lutando will go over a bit faster than other parts. But if there are any questions on any of the slides after the presentation, then we are happy to respond to that. Okay, I just want to make some introductory comments. We added this part to the slide because when we did the first public hearing in George, I realized that the people don't necessarily understand what the structure of Parliament is and sort of the context of the presentation. So I thought to add these. So the Western Cape Provincial Parliament at this point in time has 42 members. It's quite a small legislature. If I use the word Parliament and legislature, it's basically the same term. The Provincial Parliament makes laws for the Western Cape Province and has oversight of the provincial government. Those are the 2 main tasks or responsibilities of the Parliament. Of the 42 members, 11 of those members are in the provincial government. So that would be the Premier and then the provincial ministers. And of course, then Parliament must have oversight of the provincial government and make sure that they do what they are supposed to be doing. The provincial parliament is also involved with lawmaking in the National Council of Provinces. So there are some laws that come from national parliament across the road. And the constitution requires that some of those laws must also be voted on by the provinces. So then the provinces must also decide whether they support those laws or they don't support those laws. That's also a fairly large portion of the work of this parliament. And then of those 42 members, 2 of them are the speaker and the deputy speaker of the provincial parliament. Come on back. There we go. The speaker and the deputy speaker are the presiding officers of the House, and then the speaker is also responsible to oversee the finances, and is also the employer of the provincial legislature. They do generally not serve on standing committees, and generally they don't do oversight. So you're probably wondering why I'm making these points, but the point I'm trying to make is that of the 42 members, 29 of those members are directly involved with committee work. So those are the 29 members that effectively does the work of the provincial parliament, excluding the speaker and excluding the provincial government. Between those 29 members, they must serve on 10 standing committees. Those standing committees oversee the work of the provincial government. They consider laws introduced either by government or by other committees. And then, of course, they must also decide how to vote on some of the National Council of Provinces legislation. Then there are also 8 specialized committees, and from time to time there are also ad hoc committees and subcommittees. So there's quite a lot of committees and quite a lot of things that 29 members are responsible for. And also importantly, they are also responsible for to do constituency work among the residents of the province. I think this is important. In 1999, the population of the Western Cape was about 39 million people that lived in the Western Cape.
3.9. You said 3.9.
3.9, that's correct. And then at this point in time, the number of residents is about 7.2 million. So there's quite a large increase in the amount of people living in the Western Cape. So in 1999, if you do the mathematics, there was about 1 member for every 93,000 people living in the Western Cape. And at this point in time, there's about 1 member for every 171,000 people living in the Western Cape. I'm going to ask my colleague, Mr. Petros, to also go through some of the slides.
So I'll start with the legal requirements for changing the number of seats in Parliament. So I think it's good to start with the historical context, the fact that the foundational law of this country, the Constitution, which came into effect in 1997, it outlines how provincial legislatures should be constituted, right? So according to one of the articles in the Constitution, section 105, subsection 2 of this Constitution, it stipulates that the provincial legislature must have between 30 and 80 members. So the exact number is to be determined by a formula that is prescribed by national legislation. So also section 143, subsection 1 of the Constitution also adds another important nuance there. It says any provincial constitution or constitutional amendment must not conflict with the national constitution. and that it may have a different legislative or executive structures or procedures. Now, if we look at the historical milestone, in 1999, the Electoral Commission, which after a thorough public consultation, it determined the number of members for each provincial legislatures following 1999 election. So the Electoral Act formula, so the decision of the determination of the number of seats in parliament was made based on the formula set forth in item 2, section 3 of the Electoral Act that came into 1999. So this law, it prescribes that the number of seats should be determined by awarding, like my colleague said, awarding 1 seat for every 100,000 of the population within the limits of 30 and 80 seats. In other words, for every 100,000 population, there should be 1 member of seat in parliament. But the limitation is that there can only be 30 members, a minimum of 30 members in parliament, or a maximum of 80 members in parliament, right? So if we now start taking a brief look at the background, the Electoral Commission had the authority to determine the number of members allocated to provincial legislatures until 1999. However, in 1998, the Western Cape Provincial Constitution came into effect, which sets its own guidelines for the composition of the provincial parliament. Right. So I think the crux of the matter that we are discussing lies in section 13 of this provincial constitution, which states that the provincial parliament can only, it should consist of 42 members, elected members in parliament. So the legal problem, or the problem now that there was the fact that at the time it was not clear whether the Electoral Commission's determination in terms of the national legislation or the determination of the provincial constitution should prevail. So they didn't know whether to go with the Electoral Commission, which says there should be 39 members, or they should go with the provincial parliament's constitution, which says there should be 42 members, right? So there was a confusion when it came there, right? So and this confusion cannot be understated, because the number of seats affects the democratic representation of a province, and it is essential that it was essential at the time that we had clarity on this issue in terms of whether we follow the Electoral Commission or whether we follow the provincial constitution. So to address this this issue that arose of how should the number of members in provincial legislature be determined, there was a constitutional court judgment in the name of the Premier of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament and the Electoral Commission, which came in 1999. So the judgment in that constitutional court case clarified the issue. So in this judgment, it made clear the fact that section 105, subsection 2 of the Constitution do not apply to the do not apply when it comes to the composition of provincial legislature if the province has its own constitution, right? So section 143, subsection 1 of the Constitution allows the provinces to establish their own legislatures, legislative structures, as long as they don't violate subsection 1.3. So that was one of the judgments that came from that court case. So essentially what the court says is that section 105, subsection 2 of the Constitution is a default provision, in that this section only comes into play when a province doesn't have its own constitution. So right now we find ourselves with two pathways, right? So the number of seats can be determined by the provincial constitution, if one exists. Secondly, if there's no constitution that exists, the national legislation pursuant to section 105 of the constitution comes into play. So in essence, what I'm saying is that the judgment said if there is no, if a province which it's only the Western Cape province that has its own constitution, right? So if the province doesn't have a provincial constitution, it's only the national legislation that's going to determine how many members of parliament should be, right? But if it has its own constitution, then that constitution will stipulate how many members will be. So to set some context, on the 27th of August in 2021, the Electoral Act underwent a significant amendment. So this was enabled by the Electoral Laws Amendment Act of the same year of 2021. So the Electoral Act, which was amended, primarily altered Schedule 3 of the Electoral Act. Now it has a clear, the amendment made sure that we now have a clear-cut formula for deciding the number of members in the provincial legislature. And the formula is that for every 100,000 individuals residing in a province, one seat shall be awarded with a minimum of 30 and a maximum of 80 seats. So it just clarified that issue and said it essentially what's the word? It applied the judgment. It applied the judgment from the Constitutional Court. That was what the amendment was about. Right. So the role of the Electoral Commission holds the responsibility to determine the number of seats before every election and must announce their findings in a prescribed manner. So they are also mandated to notify the public through the Government Gazette, allowing all interested parties to make their case before a final decision is made. So what does that mean for the provincial parliament? So this method of determining seats will be used for the 2024 general election and future elections. So, and other provincial legislatures will also adopt this seat determination strategy. So on the 28th of March of this year, the provincial parliament took action. The standing committee of the Premier and the Constitutional Matters recommended that Section 13 of the Constitution of the Western Cape should be amended. So the proposed change was to increase the number of members in the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. I think you continue.
Then just some comments on the implications. My colleague spoke about the Electoral Laws Amendment Act and what that implies for the other provincial legislatures. I just want to give some details of what will then happen in 2024. Of course, these numbers are just my own mathematics based on Stats SA. I'm not the IEC, so I can't make the determination, but I looked at the numbers to see what the changes in the other provinces will probably be when the IEC applies the 1 in 100,000 formula that my colleague spoke to. So just to give an idea, in the Eastern Cape at this point in time, there are 63 members, and then Stats SA tell us that the population there is about 6.6 million people. So there will probably be an increase of 3 members in the Eastern Cape. So they will have a total of 66 members. The Free State will probably remain unchanged. My colleague mentioned you can't have fewer than 30 members. The population is still under 3 million. So the seats in the Free State will probably remain unchanged. Gauteng has 73 members. Their population, like the Western Cape, the population of Gauteng has grown massively. So Gauteng in 1999 had about 7.3 million residents, and now they have about 16 million residents. So that's the province that grew the most of all the provinces in the country. Also, again, my colleague referred, so you can't go over 80 members. So they can only get 7 more members. So Gauteng will probably have 80 members after the next election. KwaZulu-Natal is already on the maximum of 80 members. So even though their population has also grown quite a lot, they can't have more members than 80 members. Limpopo has 49 members. Their population grew with about 10 million people, so they will probably get an additional 10 members. Mpumalanga grew quite a lot as well. They had 30 they have 30 members. They will probably get about 17 members extra. The Northern Cape, as I mentioned, they are already at the lower limit of 30 members, so they can't have fewer members than that, so that won't change. The Northwest also will get a few more members. So all of those changes will happen. I'm going to use the word automatically. It happens automatically because the Electoral Act is in place, and the law says that in the next election, the number of seats must be adjusted in the following way. So these legislatures don't have to do anything to make that happen. It's already determined in the Electoral Act. What makes the Western Cape different, as my colleague indicated, is that we have to determine our numbers in terms of the provincial constitution, which is why I make all those question marks there, because that's still to be determined what the number will ultimately be. But at this point in time, as I said, this legislature has 42 members, and the population of the province is estimated at 7.2 million. So if the one seat or one member for every 100,000 of the population, if this province follows that norm that was determined in the Electoral Act, if we also follow that same norm, then that would mean that the legislature should have 72 members. So that would be 30 more members than it has at present. I'm going to make some quick comments on the development of the bill. I think that these may be parts of the presentation that's maybe not very, very interesting. In March of this year, the House, which means all the members sitting together in plenary, resolved for the provincial constitution to be amended so that there's a formula for the determination of seats. So that's the same. The proposal at the time was to follow the same model or the same approach than the approach that's being followed in the Electoral Act. To add an upper limit for the number of seats, of course, there needs to be a way to determine that number of seats and to amend Section 13, because Section 13 of the Provincial Constitution is the section that says that the Provincial Parliament consists of 42 members. The chairperson already indicated the House asked the Speaker to be member in charge of the bill, which means the member that is kind of driving or motivating for the law. And then there were also a proposed technical draft for what the House suggested the bill will probably look like. It should probably look as follows. There was an ad hoc committee which was asked to investigate the issue of whether there should be more seats. That ad hoc committee consisted, all the political parties of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament were represented on that committee. It was quite a large committee. I think it had 15 members on it. And they were briefed by officials, etc., on the number of seats. And that ad hoc committee made recommendations to the House. And in my presentation, I think the two important recommendations that ad hoc committee made was that the number of seats of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament is no longer adequate. And then that committee also said the current number of seats is not sufficient to represent the people of the Western Cape optimally, as accountability is compromised. So they had a view that it would improve the ability of the provincial Western Cape Provincial Parliament to represent the people of the province if they had more members. On the 6th of April, there was a draft constitution of the Western Cape First Amendment Bill. That's what it was called at the time. And the idea of the bill was essentially to amend Section 13 of the provincial constitution to increase the number of members of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Section 10 of the provincial constitution has certain requirements. It says if you want to amend the provincial constitution, 30 days before you introduce a bill to amend a provincial constitution, you have to publish it in the newspapers and in the government gazette, and you have to send the bill to all the municipalities so that they can comment on that. So that is something that the legislature had to do before it could introduce the bill. That was done. I'm not going to pause on this. So after the bill was published in terms of Section 10 of the Provincial Constitution, as one would expect, there was some comments and some suggestions that people said, maybe we should amend this, maybe we should change that. We looked at all of those suggestions, and there were a number of amendments then made to that bill. All of those are mostly technical, as you can see, remove the word draft, insert words here, etc. It was mostly technical things. It didn't really change the substance of it, which is why I don't think it's necessary to pause on that. And once those amendments were made, the bill was then introduced. Yeah. Okay. Then just some comments on the timelines and deadlines. I'm not going to pause on the steps that we've already taken, the things that are in the past. At this point in time, the bill is in the legislative process. So it's in the process for the committee to consider the bill and to have public hearings. Ultimately, then the committee will make recommendations to the House, and then the House will decide what the next step will be and what the bill should look like. I think importantly, it's important to point out that what makes a constitutional amendment bill different from an ordinary bill, by which I mean a normal provincial bill, is that it has to be certified by the Constitutional Court. Of course, the provincial constitution itself had to be certified by the Constitutional Court. Because the Constitutional Court has the obligation to make sure that where there is a provincial constitution, that provincial constitution is consistent with the national constitution and that there are not conflicts between the two. So the provincial constitution as it is has been certified. And the constitution itself says that if we want to amend that provincial constitution, we again have to go to the Constitutional Court for the Constitutional Court to certify that amendment and to say that that amendment is consistent with the Constitution. So once the House, if the House passes the bill, that bill will first have to go to the Constitutional Court for the Constitutional Court's approval, effectively, before it is sent to the Premier for the Premier to assent to it. Okay, I don't think it's necessary to reflect on the other points, except maybe to say that it's obviously quite important also to once the number has been determined, that number needs to be communicated to the Electoral Commission, because obviously they also have their own legal requirements in terms of lists, etc., that they will have to give effect to. So they need to know what the number is going to be.
So this part just sets out the primary objective of the bill, which is to amend the Western Cape, the Constitution of the Western Cape, and to also clarify and adjust the number of members that comprise the provincial parliament. So it also clarifies the fact that the amendment suggests to replace the fixed number of 42 elected members with a more dynamic criterion where one member for every 100,000 people residing in the province. As we've also noted that the number of members will not exceed 80, to ensure we're in line with the national constitution. So the manner in which these numbers will be determined is provided for in the rules and the orders of the provincial parliament itself. Obviously giving us flexibility, while maintaining accountability. Yeah. I think we can continue. Yeah. And continue. Yeah.
Then on these slides, again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them because in many ways they repeat what has already been said. These are in the explanatory memorandum on the bill, and it basically explains what the bill provides for. I'll maybe just pause on this slide. When it comes to the commencement, what the bill provides for is that the amendment will come into effect once the term of this parliament ends. So obviously we don't want to create confusion as to when the old number ceases to be relevant and the new number becomes effective. So effectively what the draft provides for is that when the term of this parliament comes to an end, which according to the constitution is the day before the first day of polling for the next legislature, on that day, the amendment will become effective, and then the next parliament will have whatever number of members the bill provides it must have. Just on consultation, referred to in the memorandum. So clearly the bill doesn't come from just a few people. It has to be consulted with widely. So the provincial parliament consulted internally. I've already mentioned the ad hoc committee. So all the parties were represented in the ad hoc committee to discuss whether there should be more members in the provincial parliament. It was also referred to the standing committee on the Premier and constitutional matters, which is the same committee as the one we are in now. And then that committee also made certain recommendations, which we already referred to. Further, we also consulted with the parliamentary administration. So that's obviously people like myself. So if there are going to be more members, one needs to think about the implications for the support staff that supports the members. There was consultation with the Director General for the province, with Provincial Treasury, because of course there are financial implications. So that needs to be consulted on. There was consultations with the Department of Infrastructure. This building is part of that department's assets, let me put it that way. So if there's a need for more offices, etc., one needs to discuss that as well. The Provincial Department of Police Oversight and Community Safety, that's mostly responsible for security in this building. And then, of course, the Electoral Commission of South Africa was also a very important stakeholder that had to be consulted with. I've referred to Section 10 of the Provincial Constitution already. The bill was published in the Provincial Gazette. It was also published in Die Burger and the Cape Argus and Vukani. And it was also distributed to all the municipalities in the Western Cape. And then after the bill was introduced, there were further comments. So the Office of the Premier made some suggestions on the bill. The Commission for Gender Equality also made some suggestions, and Provincial Treasury, and again the parliamentary administration itself also made some suggestions and recommendations. Then on the financial implications, these are also referred to in the memorandum on the objects of the bill. So there will be a financial implication for the Constitutional Court process. One will obviously have to get counsel involved to go to court. Then to just reflect on the categories of financial implications, there will be implications for the total remuneration for members. So clearly, if there are more members, the members must get salaries, so there will be a financial implication for that. Accommodation for members, so the physical spaces that they need to work in. Allowances for political parties to do their work, enabling allowances for the members, support by the parliamentary administration itself, and then also operational expenditure. The financial implications are estimated to be between 22 million per year, between 22 million or 96 million. I will reflect a bit on why there's such a big difference in the next slide, but it is estimated to be somewhere in that range. I also think that this committee will probably be briefed in some detail at some point on those financial implications. So from the when it comes to the financial implications, as I mentioned already, the bill is a point of departure, and that point of departure is that there should be one member for every 100,000 people that reside in the province. But there was also an analysis done to look at the different options, and doesn't necessarily have to be 1 in 100,000. Maybe there could be fewer members than that, because as you can see, it will have financial implications. So the first option there, which is option 1, if there is one member for every 150,000 people in the province, that will be an additional 6 members. That will mean that the provincial legislature will have 48 members, and then the financial implication will be about 22 million. So I'm not going to go through all the detail, but I think it's quite clear. So depending on the more members there are in the legislature, then the expenditure will also increase. So one of the things that this committee will have to look at is the financial implication, and to do that cost-benefit analysis of where the committee thinks what the correct number of members would be. And Chairperson, that is the presentation.
Thank you, Advocate Leroux and Mr. Petros, for that presentation. To the members of the public, I'd just like to acknowledge for the record, if members Marais and Brinkers can introduce themselves to the public for the record, please. Switch on the mic.
I'm Peter Marais, a member of Parliament here in the Western Cape and a member of this committee.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. My name is Khalil Brankes, and I'm also a member of the Western Cape Legislature. Thank you very much.
Sorry, Member Dagmar, could you switch the mic off, please, man? Thank you. Okay. Members of the public, I'm going to ask, before we ask for submissions, and I understand that there are three submissions, well, 2 submissions, and then if there anybody else who'd like to make submissions. But are there any questions of clarity that you'd like to ask? Thank you, ma'am. If I could ask that you just put the mic on, it's the gray button on the stand, and then introduce yourself with your name and your question, please.
Good day to everybody. My name is Lynn Phillips. I'm from Mitchell's Plain. The question that I would like to pose is there finances for this massive thing that will be taking place? That's the one. Because if I look at government is going into, or always speaking about cost containment. Now, the challenge that I'm having, if we speak cost containment, we're speaking increase of members of parliament on service delivery, the impact of service delivery, because currently, if the finances is going to go into that direction, it means there is less money for service delivery in our communities.
Thank you, ma'am. Advocate Leroux?
Chairperson, I think on the issue of the finances, we'll have to ask Provincial Treasury. I don't think I can comment on that. Whether there's money and how much money there is. I'll maybe make a comment on the service delivery, but it's not a comment for or against it's just the observation that I want to make. And that observation is that, of course, the work of the legislature is also to oversee the executive and to ensure that there is service delivery. So there's that sort of dynamic there as well. Shane.
Thank you very much, Advocate Lulu. I will now, in the absence of any more further questions of clarity, ask for submissions to the bill. Are they, I see, is it Quandilis Kosana? Are you here? No. Okay. Then Advocate Rod Solomons. Okay. Advocate Rod Solomons, if you could, you can come sit here, sir. Okay. Thank you. I will ask if you could start off. Good afternoon, sir. I would like to ask if you could start off by saying whether you support or you not support the bill, and then make your submission accordingly, if you may. Thank you. Yeah, I can just put it on. Yeah.
Represent. Thanks. We don't support the bill. Can I make the submission? Thanks, Chairperson and members. Thank you for the opportunity to address you further to this written submission that we made regarding this on the 24th of August 2023. I made that and I make this further oral submission on behalf of the South Africa First Forum, more than 5,600 supporters and members. It's a national civil society grouping, but we are based in Cape Town with a strong focus on accountability and corruption issues. It was formed in 2016 to hold those in positions of authority accountable for their actions. The forum consists of a group of patriotic South Africans who put our country and our people first, and we believe in the sovereignty of our constitution. We wish for people to be empowered in order to speak truth to power and hold public representatives accountable for their actions. We wish to live in a South Africa governed by accountable leaders. We are a non-partisan group of ordinary civilians who are agitating for a united, a non-racial, a non-sexist, a democratic, and a corruption-free society where the interests of ordinary South Africans receive priority attention. Apparently, the essence of this bill is to amend the Western Cape Constitution in order to increase the number of members of parliament and maybe MECs too. Currently, the Western Cape Parliament consists of 42 members, with 11 of them serving in the Executive Council. So according to the report presented by the ad hoc committee, the rest of the 31 provincial legislature members represent the people of the Western Cape. We thought that all 42 of them represent all the people of the Western Cape. Who does the other 11 who are in the Executive Council, who do they then represent? Incredulously, it is recommended to increase the provincial legislature to 71 members, almost double the current number. And we heard the figures is going to cost at least 96 million rand. With the greatest respect, we don't need more politicians in provincial parliament who get their salaries paid by already struggling taxpayers, and I make that in bold. It is our contention that we should rather get rid of provincial governments and just have provincial administrations to deliver services together with a national parliament and local governments. That, however, is a debate for another time. We are firmly of the view that the last thing that we need in our country, burdened by a weak economy and a fiscus under so much pressure, are more politicians with accompanying support staff and more costs that the fiscus simply won't be able to afford. Instead of increasing the number of parliamentarians, the focus should rather be on extracting better service delivery value from each serving current member and rid ourselves, and I use a strong word, of the useless and the incompetent ones. So we totally reject this suggestion to increase the number of members of the Western Cape Legislature. It is quite instructive that a party, that the DA, who is the official opposition at national parliament, regularly speak out against the size of the national parliament and cabinet. And we agree with them in that regard. But now that it is a governing party in the Western Cape, it is arguing for the almost doubling of the number of the members of the provincial legislature. Talk about double standards. Subsequent to the aforementioned submission that we made, merely a week thereafter, it became public knowledge that the National Treasury briefed the President and his cabinet about the precarious financial situation that our country is in. All national and provincial government departments were instructed to institute severe cost-cutting measures. This includes the stopping of some key projects, the freezing of or appointing of staff, and possibly retrenchment of staff. They apparently also engaged SALGA and local government to embark on similar exercises. The government is also scrambling to find ways to fund the extension of the 350 Rand support grant that many South Africans are dependent on. This can run into billions of rands. Furthermore, government needs to secure billions to introduce the basic income grant that the President committed to. Once again, this will not be funded by politicians, but by taxpayers like myself and others out there, with the talk being of there potentially be a 2% increase in VAT in order to fund this. This increase in number of members of parliament is adding more to the ballooning wage bill of the state and increases consumptive expenditure even more. It is precisely that kind of expenditure that must be cut, and revenue generating expenditure that must rather be made. So in the light of this, and the increasing burden on ordinary South Africans to make ends meet, it is simply mind-boggling that members of this legislature can still continue to adopt the recommendation to increase the number of members of the provincial legislature. We simply cannot afford this. We trust that our considered input will be taken into account during your deliberations. A final point. It is great that you are having this hearing. But a nagging question is this: how serious are you to enable the public to make input when you have such a very important and crucial engagement late on a Friday afternoon in the heart of the CBD when everyone are almost on their way home? The people of the province will with interest watch what the members sitting in these benches are going to be doing about this matter. Remember, the 2024 elections are around the corner. I thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Solomons, for that submission. Are there any other submissions that anybody would like to make? Going once? Going twice? Thank you very much. Are there any comments from the members that they would like to make? Member Murray?
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get perspective. What is happening here? The Western Cape, and everybody agrees, is the best governed province out of 9. The best. But let's look at the facts. How are they the best? Gauteng has 73 members of parliament. 73. But Gauteng is such a small province, it's only 18,170 square kilometers. So klein dorpie. But hulle het 73 MPs. Now let's look at KZN. Also smaller, much smaller than us. They have 80 MPs. 80. Now look at the Western Cape, the work we have in the Western Cape and the area we must cover. Now remember, Gauteng is only 18,176 square kilometers. The Western Cape is 129,462 square kilometers. That's big. It stretched from the Cape right up to Beaufort West. And this 41 MPs must, if somebody phone them with a problem, we got to travel. That's huge areas. Is you om die hoekie? That is the one point. But we never complained since 94. We did our work and we still do our work better than any other province. Now, we are not saying we want 71 in total. In order to get to this amount, there must be a 2/3 majority vote in this parliament here. 2/3, not a simple majority. The DA is not going to decide alone. DA isn't 2/3 of the 42. It will require the ANC to agree. It will require the Freedom Front to agree. It will require the EFF. Because you need 2/3. That is your guarantee. It's not just going to be a matter of, as well 71 MPs said. We're going to look at the budgets. We're going to see, is there enough money? And if there's not enough money for 70, maybe we come and say, no. We're not going to put in the Constitution the number. We're going to say, we're just going to take out the 41, which is now in the Constitution, or 42. We might decide we only increase it by another 5 or 6 or 7, but we will have gotten out of the straitjacket situation where there's a fixed number of MPs in our Constitution, which no other province have. Other provinces are not bound by a constitution of the province because they don't have a constitution. So they do what the national constitution says, and the national constitution says you should have 1 MP for every 100,000 people. And we have 7.1 million people. So if you divide 100,000 into 7.1, then you into 7.1 million, you come to 71 MPs. But like my advocate there says, yes, we can't just go and say we want so many MPs if there's no money and other service delivery will suffer. That is your guarantee. Your guarantee is going to be you instruct your political party, whoever you vote for, whether you are happy with it, because we will all have to agree before we can change the Constitution. But just give us this leeway, because you can't expect more and more and more of the Western Cape MPs, and more people come here. In 1994, there was only 4.1 million people in the Western Cape, 1994. 2022, there's 7.1 million. It's an extra 3 million. Now, who must service them if we don't have more MPs? That's all I want to say. We are not out to make money. We're out to make sure with a huge influx of people to this province, we can still do service delivery. With 41 MPs, we won't be able to.
Thank you, Member Marie. Member Dugmore.
Thanks very much, Chairperson. And once again, thanks for everyone for being and also to the advocate for his presentation. You know, the first thing, I don't want us to turn this hearing into, you know, statements such as Honorable Marie has issued now, because I'm not sure whether everyone in this hearing would agree. I definitely don't, that the Western Cape is the best governed. It depends where you live. Maybe if you live in Rondebosch or Plattekloof, maybe it's well governed for you. But if you live in Mitchell's Plain or Paarl East or Khayelitsha, the quality of services leaves a lot to be desired. So I don't know if we are going to go into that issue. I think the situation is that at this point in time, there is a national formula, right? A national formula which says for every 100,000 people, you need one member of provincial parliament. So that's a national formula. People from different provinces come to the Western Cape as they go to Gauteng. Gauteng has actually had more population growth. And so I hear the point that Western Cape is geographically spread, and I think that is a point that is a valid one. And you know, I also, Chairperson, hear what Advocate Solomons is saying in regard to the actual cost, and I see that his organization makes a proposal to scrap provinces. Now, the reality is that we have a constitution in this country which says there are 3 spheres of government. I personally would like us to move a situation where we have a strong national government and a strong local government. But at the moment, that is the structure of this country until the constitution is amended. So in that context, you know, there are, and I suppose I'm talking from an opposition, I'm from the ANC, but we are the opposition in this province. And when it comes to serving committees, and I'm sure the members of the smaller parties would even experience it worse, where you're trying to send your members to go to committee meetings here, you know, to go to committee meetings in the National Assembly, to take part in oversight and to serve your constituency. There are pressures. There's no question about that. There are pressures, whether that means we go for 72 or we stay the same or we increase slightly. I think is the exact reason why we're having these public hearings, to hear what people have to say. So, you know, there are going to be, as I understand it, 2 more public hearings. We've had 2 already, and there've been sort of mixed views on this issue. And so I think I would just like to conclude by saying that as you said, Chair, we're all sitting in this chamber. And I think another issue that people are raising, which we should also consider, is if you have 60 members or 72, you know, would you physically have to change this member? I know we have many more meetings on Zoom. You know, that issue of the infrastructure required, I think, is another issue that we need to look at. But it is true that geographically, the Western Cape is spread out. It is true that the population has grown. And I also want to contest the notion that, you know, because Advocate Solomons implies that, you know, he makes a general statement about the useless ones. Now, there are many people who actually do serve their constituencies. There are many people who actually, you know, do what they're supposed to do in the constituency. So maybe, you know, there's a point around the need to have proper monitoring and evaluation, but I don't think it's correct for the advocate to imply that, you know, MPs or MPLs are just useless. I think that's a statement, but we do understand that he does represent a political party, and his party is also busy with the campaign. So we do understand that.
Thank you very much. I forgot to add that we do have translation services. It's the little thing on your what's the name? I don't see any other hands. Oh, Advocate Solomon, would like to respond.
Thanks. Just on the last point that Mr. Dugmo made. I didn't make a blanket statement that said all members of parliament is useless. Please read again. I said, are they useless and incompetent ones? So there are some that are doing very good work. We will admit that. That there are some that are useless and incompetent. We stand by that. There are some. We're not saying all of them. Then Mr. Murray around the issue of the size of the width. You know what? The arguments that we make here, we would make the arguments if any other province would want to increase their numbers. We say we make a statement that our country cannot afford more politicians. And if you use the size of the Western Cape, then one can go down that route. You look at the size of other provinces. The Northern Cape, for example, is, I think, is in terms of land size bigger than the Western Cape. They got 30 members of parliament, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't think that's wise to go that route. I think the point that Mr. Dugmo made around the quality, the best run services, etc. One can't deny that, but it's best run and quality for some, and where you live, and who you know. It's that's a point. And then the other point that we want to make is, you know, back in the day, I don't want to use, but we know what period before 1994. Otherwise I'll be accused of using that as an excuse again. But back in the day, government did certain things, and they said they did it, it's lawful because the legislation allowed it. But it was the wrong things that they did. They oppressed people, they discriminated against people, but they did it in terms of legislation. So the fact that the IEC Act provides that for every 100,000 you must have one member of parliament, etc. The reality is one can take those things on review. The fact of the matter is this country, if we are objective, if we are rational, and if we look what's happening in our communities, this country cannot afford more politicians, cannot afford the expenditure to renovate this building to accommodate, whether it is 10 extra members of parliament that you're going to add here. Is what this country needs is our people having a better quality of life, live with dignity, people live in security and all of those things. That's what our country require. So the appeal is really for the members of parliament. And I'm glad, Mr. Murray, you indicated it's a 2/3 majority that's required. So therefore, my point stands. We're going to see who of the members of parliament are part of that 2/3 majority to vote for these increases. Thank you.
Thank you, Advocate Solomon.
Sorry, just can I, and Mr. Dugmo, we're not a political party, we're a civil society organization. Thank you.
Okay. If there are no further oral submissions, can I just say that if you feel that you'd rather want to make a written submission, my right-hand lady, she's on your right, but on my left, but she's my right-hand lady. She's Ms. Wasima Kamish Ahmad. She's our procedural officer. So she is responsible for all, making sure that I do the right thing, which is important. You can come forward and get her email address, and you can make a written submission. And if you would prefer to make a written submission as well as an oral submission, like Advocate Solomons has done today, then you can also attend the subsequent public hearings, which will be held in Paarl on the 22nd of September, which is next week, Friday. And then in Zwelihle in Hermanus, which is the 18th of October. The 18th of October. I'm going to ask one more time because in the interest of democracy, because we are a democracy and everybody's voice has to be heard. I see that there's a gentleman at the back there. If you could, sorry. Yeah, if you could introduce yourself, and then the gentleman on my left.
Okay, my name is Mr. Gelderblom.
Gelderblom.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
I just want to comment on what Mr. Marais said of the 2/3 majority where the voting is concerned. I'm actually ashamed of him being the same person that of the same of a koi that is talking like that because and we are from Mitchell's Plain, sir. All the money is being spent not for our areas. And what I am now referring to is that your 2/3 majority, definitely you're going to have if the ANC or the EFF or the DA all is probably going to support the motion. I'm ashamed to know that you, as coming from a Khoi nation, Khoi background, asking for increase while you didn't call us for an increase for the rates and for the electricity, and to have more money spent on this parliament is a disgrace. It's a disgrace, sir. You already come. It's a disgrace.
Member Marie.
I'm just saying it is a disgrace.
Member, please.
We expect this from.
We haven't even voted, and he says I already voted.
No.
You already voted.
No, we haven't already voted, sir.
There's no voting taking
please, can we
place
not have
here.
any dialogue?
But I'm just saying, you sitting here, you must be ashamed of even suggesting to increase while our people is suffering, where our people must make a decision of a 10 rand. Yeah, baseball for my suit, a 10 rand for a break or for electricity. You are ashamed for South Africa.
Sir, can we, Member Marie and Mr. Gelderblom? Member Marie, Mr. Gelderblom.
I'm just bringing what I'm just bringing by, by oral submission.
Sir,
I'm just saying that I am very, very disappointed because I did not expect a member of parliament that is from a Khoisan background to want to increase the burden and the pain of our people.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gelderblom. Can I just say that this is still a committee of the House, and the decorum of the House must be preserved. Please, can I ask that we preserve the decorum of the House and we not enter into dialogue. That being said, your voice must be heard. But I ask that it be done with respect and the dignity and the decorum of the House. I did see the gentleman on my left, but I saw a hand on my right-hand side. If I could ask that you make your submission by starting whether you support or you not support the bill, so that we have that for the record. So if you may introduce yourself and make your submission.
Hi, good day. My name is Farouk Davids from Mitchell's Plain. I would not support the bill. I think that more administrative staff should be appointed in municipalities, and according to public management systems, proper systems, monitoring and evaluations should be put in place, and to create more jobs put the right people in the right places, and we will have effective service delivery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Davids. The gentleman on my right-hand side there, please, sir.
Hi, good day, Mr. Chair. My name is Romano. I'm from the Mitchell's Plain community. I do not support this motion because for this mere fact is that the public is being asked, and I just want to confirm what the gentleman is saying. The public is being asked now to give comment in terms of increasing members of parliament. But the same public was not asked when tariffs went up and our people can still not today afford electricity. We were not even, people didn't come to us. Our own councillors that represent us in council could not come to us as a community and say, we are going to, this is what they want to implement. But now that it's in the interest of them, they now want us to say, we agree with this thing. So I do not agree with this motion, Chair.
Thank you very much. May I get your surname just to be sure, Mr. Romano?
Romano Cock, KOCK.
Ramal Cox, KOCK. Thank you very much, sir. I understand the gentleman next to you had his hand up as well. Is that true? You can just put on the mic, introduce yourself, whether you support the bill or not, and your submission, please, sir.
Yes, it's true. I raised my hand. I'm Stephen Mgomezulu. Well, I looked at the slides, but I had a problem with some of the slides that the gentleman was actually presenting because we didn't have a copy of those slides. So I'm not going to go there. I just want to go straight to the point. Is that we are here to come and help you guys also with the increase of the members or decrease of the members. But my issue that I'm having is that Honorable Mare cannot use this bill to debate the way he debated, because I'm from Mitchell's Plain, and where I come from, my service is not well. We are battling heavily there. So you cannot define the bill of what you want to have, but in the end, you don't want to show us what that bill will get to as your answer. You can't have a law for this house, like for this bill only, or a law that will only support what Mr. Mare just said now. This interaction already, obviously, you can see it's got a painful separation where we are not working here. Most of the people are unemployed. And where he comes from, what he just commented now, I think it's I'm not a politician, but it's not sitting well with us. Surely you guys have rules and it should be addressed from that perspective. I don't stay in Joburg. I stay in Cape Town, and I don't really think that it should be a Joburg issue as a point of reference. We should stick to Cape Town, and you should be given the reasons why we should support you guys to increase these members. We understand you are under pressure. We understand that it has to be increased. Although I support it, but bearing in mind that the angle that he came on, I don't like the tangent that Mr. Mare came on. Nobody supports anyone who is unpredictable in the first place. So we need to be predictable to know what you are talking. Don't shove it on us. We're not councillors. You must not shove it on us. You must not force it on us. The gentleman had the rights to actually say what he was saying. I don't agree. I don't disagree. It was his opinion. But I think Mr. Mare, with his experience over the years, surely he could address this. He could address this professionally as a South African.
As an MP.
Can I ask again that we don't please, Member Mare?
Yeah.
Let's not indulge in dialogue, please. Mr. Gomezulu, you may continue.
You say? I was distracted here.
Please continue.
I think this, I take this like a dollar, is that all countries use that dollar, and everybody understands it to be believable. So if this bill surely is there to actually make our lives better in terms of the service delivery, then I support the bill.
Thank you very much. I do see a gentleman on my left. I just want to make sure that we have all the hands acknowledged. I do see you, sir. The lady on my left, and then that's it. Is that it? Okay. Gentlemen.
Hi, good day. My name is Faisal Brown. I am from Mitchell's Plain. But I was born in District 6. And it is now about roughly 50 years since we were forcefully removed from District 6. And it's now 30 years that the process is underway and we're still waiting to return to District 6. Now, my question is, how will this improve the lives of the disadvantaged and the people that suffered under apartheid? Because a lot of these things have not been dealt with. Now, if you say that you want to increase the number of members of the House of the Western Cape Parliament, how will it start to address those issues that has not been resolved, that we are still waiting to be resolved? We have issues regarding land reform also in this province. And the people from the rural towns that are here know exactly what I'm talking about. That we have families being evicted from farms on a constant basis. And it's happening even though there are supposed to be laws protecting them. They are still being thrown off the farms with nowhere to go. There has not been proper land reform in this province yet. It is as if we are afraid to tackle the issues that confront our people. Now, for me, the question is, those issues are the issues that needs to be addressed. And how will this addition of more members to the Western Cape Parliament, how will that improve those kinds of problems? I hear what some of the members are saying in terms of the workload and the pressures, and I understand it completely. But like I say, there are also deeper issues that needs to be addressed, that is not being resolved. And we find ourselves as communities, we find ourselves unable to make any progress to deal with those issues, whether it is service delivery or whether it is bigger historical issues like land reform and the correcting of the injustices that were perpetrated that has not been addressed as yet. And that is my contribution to this conversation. Thank you.
So just to make sure for the record, do you support or you're not support the bill?
At this point in time, I'm in two minds.
That's fine.
Thank you.
That's perfectly okay. Ma'am, in the, yes.
Good afternoon. My name is Bianca Boyson. I'm from De Novo, just outside Graffontein. I'm also the co-founder for Essentially Opportunities Focusing on Human Rights for the farm people or people in rural lifestyles. I do not support anything that is going to take more money from our people that are poor. For our people that are still living with gravel roads, such as myself in my community, for our people that are currently having 42 MPs that not all of them, yes. I saw that sharp look. Not all of them, but the majority of them aren't. And I can only speak of personal experiences. I worked it out. I did the math. So for 72 members at 96 million per year, that would be 1.3 million rand additional income or additional expenditure per person. A person that's not really and how does that better our lives? 1.3 million rand that that could have been used for the social injustices that we in our communities actually need. This is a necessity. This is not a want. We need this money. Why can't the bills of this honorable house and the honorable members, why can't the bills make allowances for outside representation such as activists? This house is full of activists, community activists. These are our people that are actually doing the work on behalf of the paid people of this house. These are the people. We are the people doing the work. Why can this money not be spent on us? Because do you know how difficult it is to get on every database? Do you know how difficult it is to get money to run your soup kitchen, to feed your community? When there is money available, you're telling me that the provincial government has an extra. I know that once they've done this, they've got 96 million rand in their coffers available already. I know what's in the coffers. I know. I read the stats. I know that there is money because I also know that there's housing money that goes back to national government every time, and we are still struggling. So you want to tell me that even it's, you know what, I don't want to use the word disgusted, man, because I'm not, I don't want to vomit. It's not that. I'm actually sad. I'm sad that we can sit here and I just fed 10 families this morning out of my own pocket. So there's 96 million rand, but I can't get funding. There's 96 million for people who are already earning a lot of money for salaries, our money, and not doing their work. This is not the best run city. I can tell you, sir, this city does not work for us. It works on our nerves. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I didn't get your surname. Miss Boyson, thank you. Thank you for that. Are there any other further inputs? Ah, yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Genevieve Zongolo. I come from Kayamandi, a township in Stellenbosch. Okay. So as I said, I come from Kayamandi. It's a township in Stellenbosch. I feel quite nervous, frustrated, and conflicted. I see the need for there to be an increase, but also as I think Sir mentioned that, you know, the Western Cape it's stretched and whatnot. And I feel like I can acknowledge that I see the need, obviously. However, there is so much that needs to be done that can be done with that money instead of adding more people. Like it was said before, that some are incompetent, they don't care, they are not doing their job. So how is that benefiting our communities? How is that benefiting me, Genevieve, who comes from Kayamandi, that's at this moment being squeezed? There are no real developments happening. There's a housing shortage. So how is that going to benefit me who comes from that? Right, more money has to come from the people who have to take the taxis every day for people who will be able to live luxury lives. So I'm just, yeah, I'm just not for this, and that will be my point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Komodo. Nzongo. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm a bit. My mother always said I was deaf, but anyway, that's another story for another day. Sir at the back, and then the sir on my left.
Yeah, I'm Mario Paulson from Mitchell's Plain. The great concern is for our children, our future of our children. Here's money that is being given out to people that's got money already and wealthy. And the children suffering in Mitchell's Plain throughout South Africa. They haven't got even a decent plate of food on the table. They haven't got even money for school clothes. So how's government going to help our children? Our future is my grandchildren, there's everybody's grandchildren here, and they haven't got decent food on the tables. Soup kitchens is helping them, yes. But what happens when the soup kitchen is not available? Children going hungry at schools. So how is government going to help our children? The 350 has been taken away already by 2024. What's going to happen then? There's a great problem. I don't agree with this bill as well. It's so sad to see we in this country, and there's a major problem where families is concerned, the economies feed their children, old people dying of hunger. How are we going to support these people? Thank you very much. I'm Mario Paulson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pulse. I appreciate your comment. The gentleman in the corner.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. My name is Louis Santi. I'm from Mitchell's Plain.
Sorry, could you repeat your name, please?
Louis.
Louis.
Yes, Santi.
Louis Santi.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I'm the product of the state. If you know the state, formerly known as Kensington.
Yes.
Yes.
My parents are from Kensington,
Yes,
so I know
yes,
the state
I'm
well.
the product of the state. Thank you so much for having such a session, but so much has been said in the house, and where we come from, you know, people are using like different names. Like we coming, some would say we're coming from the ghetto. So where we live, there's gunshots every day. Where we live, there's social ills. where we live, like if people depend on soup kitchens, that's not a joke. You can't expect people to have a soup kitchen for the rest of their lives. You know, I think the idea, it's I'm not saying it's a good idea in terms of like increasing the number, but the timing, you know, you can't tell me that most of us, we don't know like financially what's happening in our country. And I'm not going to say who to blame, but the timing, it's bad, you know. So if we are going to take some of the portion and plant it somewhere, what is it going to assist, you know, in terms of making sure that we living a better life? So the timing is out. It needs to be taken into consideration. Yes, you have done it in newspapers, like, you know, procedurally, it was followed in terms of the legislation and so on and so forth, you know, for auditors to come and see that all the preparations were done, you know, legally speaking. So, you know, we know law, we understand law, we interpret law, you know, so we represent the people on the ground. We risk our lives. You know, some of us are we are in a hit list, and we might be gunned down anytime for making sure that there's peace in our community. You see, if you're traveling and you're driving or you're walking, you'll see people injecting themselves. You know, there's drug addicts, there's gangsterism, and so on and so forth. It can't be, you know, it's off tune. The only thing is to make sure that people are taken care of. And it's the same people who come and vote, you know, for our people and making sure that we're moving forward. Yes, I understand in terms of you're saying like 100,000, there should be whatever, but it does make sense, you know, and geographically speaking so. But the point is it the right time? You know, in each and every family member, there's a mom, then there's a dad. Before you spend the budget on your kids, you got 6 kids. Paul wants a sneaker, cost 6,000. Is it the right time to buy that sneaker? There's nothing wrong buying a sneaker for your child, but is it the right timing? The timing, it's bad. It's not a good time. So now we need to be strategically and do something else in making sure that we have a better Western Cape for all. I thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Sorry, Ms. Phillips.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to say that I don't support the bill. And I'm an activist of Mitchell's Plain. And understanding the plight and the heartbeat of our communities. I also want to say the reason why I don't support the bill, that billions or that millions can be utilized very constructively in our communities. If we look at substance abuse, Mitchell's Plain, on the Cape Flats specifically, the increase of substance abuse, there's no assistance. If we look at our children who are being bullied at school, suicides are high. What is the impact of this giving more members to provincial legislature, but not doing their work in their constituencies even? Not even in the constituency, they are dealing with these things. Because wherever they are on a holiday, we're somewhere else, where whilst our communities are bleeding, blood is flowing down our streets, our people are suffering very much in our communities on the Cape Flats. Why is there development only from Pilings to Cape Town and not from Langa to the other side? That is what we are seeing. The only development we see in our communities is speed humps. Why only speed humps? What about constructive development for our communities? Why are our communities not seeing those type of things? So for me, as an activist, facing these social ills and socioeconomic challenges that our communities face, I am sorry, I can't support the bill like this, where the rich is getting richer and the gap between rich and poor is widening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is it Mrs. Phillips? Miss Phillips. I want to make sure I get that. Thank you very much, Ms. Phillips. I appreciate your comment. I just want to reiterate that if there's no further oral comments, yes. If there are no further oral comments other than the two that I see in front of me, I want to reiterate that you can email written submissions. And then the last, Mr. De Vries, is it? No, okay. You can still make written submissions, but ma'am? Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wendy Ngapha, and I'm from Kayamandi. I'm a township in Stellenbosch. I am part of the Stellenbosch Civil Advocacy Network. I would say I am neutral about supporting this, but I would be lying. I do understand says concerns about like having a workload that they feel like they need to increase the members. But looking at the cost, it's actually not the right time, as Sarah have mentioned at the corner. And speaking about strategies, instead of like using this, having this cost of like millions to employ more people, whereby we have like not most effective members who are that we have been talking about. Like there's people that are working, doing their job properly, but some of the members are not doing it like effectively. So instead of like focusing on getting more people that we do not know that they will be effective or not, how about we first like spend some time in monitoring and evaluating these people that are already existing and try to find, okay, let's say like de-elect people that are not effective, and also like work on other like I had it here, civil advocacy or any other organizations that are here or that are surrounded in the Western Cape that are focusing on bettering the communities, and also like the people who knows what are the issues. How about we have them to sit in here and have their inputs helping this chamber to do the better work. That's my point. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The lady next to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Musha Mashao. Well, I am against the motion, and I have the following contentions. I hear the legal implications to having to increase members of parliament, but what are the social requirements thereof? Do you know what I'm saying? Because legally, on paper, it makes all the sense to say we are going to have this increase because there is so much pressure on the current MPs. But now, here is my point. How do we hold the current leaders accountable? What are the social indicators then that we can attribute to the work that they are doing so far to say here is the record, we have everything they have been doing, there has been good service delivery or issues like that. If we don't see that, then how can we say an increase is warranted? What indicators did we look for? What indicators indicate the fact that apart from the legal requirements or from a financial standpoint to say we have the money to do this, there is legal backing for this, we can do this. Building an economy does not only rely on politicians alone. We can have civil society involved. We can have private, or you can say businesses involved, because as members of parliament, they have their own limitations. Because as legislature, they have a responsibility to a certain extent. They have their limitations. So if we work together from local to provincial to national, I think as a country in total, or just the Western Cape as a government, if we're looking at provincial government, a lot can be achieved. So what I see is there is a shortfall, and this is exactly what I mean. There is a shortfall in our skills and in our youth skills and knowledge reserves, because if you go into parliament and look at the demographic of the members of parliament, and you look at the age, for example, that's another contributing factor because we are in a new dispensation now. We are in a new democratic dispensation, and issues that they are having to deal with, or that they have to solve now, are not relevant to the current state that we are in. It would take a fresh mind to actually consider certain aspects that would drive the economy forward. So that's how you get people engaged to make to have a meaningful contribution to the economy. Engaged citizenship, that's what I'm trying to say. So as much as we say legally this makes sense because all the processes, all the right processes have been followed, and financially it would make all the sense because there is money earmarked for that. There are certain aspects of what drives the economy that we are not actually looking at, and I think that deserves to really be looked at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do see Member Bartman's hand on the virtual platform. Member Bartman.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to ask that, given that there were some references to some local government mandates and national government mandates, that at the end we just ensure that we perhaps engage our national counterparts in the National Council of Provinces and National Assembly regarding some of those mandate concerns, and that we forward those while some of them are not the provincial parliament or provincial government mandates. I think they are important, and that we must make sure that those comments and concerns from the public that were received do not go lost when it comes to the respective deliberations, and that we commit that where something does fall outside our mandate, that we make sure that it lands up on the correct desk at the correct door, and that those get responded to. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Bartman. You took the words quite literally out of my mouth. I was just going to say that there are. I want to say that public hearings are not a tick box exercise. Public hearings are for it's a function of our democracy. It's one of the functions of what parliaments do. The other functions are A, we make laws, and B, we exercise oversight over the executive. Now, part of exercising that oversight of the executive includes oversight visits to different communities to see what is happening in those communities. The overarching question as to why this bill is informed, or this bill is here, is that what do we have to do to serve the people better? And what does service mean? Now, I've heard all the inputs, and let me just reiterate that those inputs are all will be taken into consideration for the bill, and A, for where they are not, for what lands outside of our mandate as the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. So your voices have been heard, and we will deliberate on them accordingly. But the bill is about service delivery within the confines of what the provincial government is mandated to do as per the Constitution. But we can't be blind to the fact that our people are suffering. We can't be blind to that. And I'm not going to indulge in the politics of it, because that's not going to. I mean, if I may relay as a personal experience, my alma mater, my high school. In my high school, I'm part of the alumni association, and 20% of the children go to school hungry. How do you feed a hungry child? How do you teach? How do you teach a hungry child? That's the reality that we have. Our people are suffering. We have to make sure that the government does everything in its power to help people who suffer. Question is, how do we do that as a parliament? That's the question that is before us. But those who support the bill and those who do not support the bill, their voices will be heard. It is not. Let me just say that from our George deliberation and from our Saldanha Bay deliberations, it's not new things that have been brought up here in these public hearings. It's not new. It's things that are happening across the Western Cape. But again, let me say that the question is, how do we serve better? And if this is not the way if this is not one of the ways, then so be it. But we need to serve our people better. And that's the point here. That's the point of the bill. I'm not going to comment on the financial implications of that. We will get input from the provincial treasury, and they have made submissions on that, if I'm not mistaken. And those submissions can be made available once the bill is deliberated on. That being said, are there any further last round oral submissions? Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm from Clutersville, Stellenbosch. And you know, people, I was
So your
sitting
name,
here.
ma'am?
My name is Margarita Brandt.
Margarita Brandt.
Margarita.
Margarita Brandt.
Margarita, yes.
Thank you.
I'm sitting here and I'm listening to everything that goes out. And at once it strikes me, you know what? On pension day, our pensioners, their money was delayed. And that old age people, they all, hulle is almal afhanklik van daai pensioentjie. En dan kom ons by die kinders en service delivery in ons gebied, regtig, ek moet sê, dit is regtig, dit is drasties. Daar word niks vir ons mense gedoen. Ek is 'n community warrior for change. Ek en my kollegas hier af, ons serve die community. Ons werk elke dag. Ons moet mense voed. Ons moet, my een kollega het 'n kar verkoop op eens op 'n tyd om regtig waar die community te serve, om hulle die mense te help om kos op hulle tafel te kry. En die service delivery, laat ek by die punt bly by service delivery, dit word nie vir ons gedoen nie. In Clutersville veral, Clutersville. Hoorie wat ek sê, Clutersville. Daar word niks gedoen nie. Die councillors, hulle is so lamsakkig, hulle doen nie hulle werkie. So ek dink ek kan die bill support met dat as die ou mense se geld nou die dag nie eens inwas nie. En die mense is afhanklik van daai bietjie geld wat ons van die government kry. En dat dit net nie gebeur nie. Ek is een van hulle, want ek is 64 jaar oud. Ek het niks al gekry nog nie. Ek moet nog gaan sukkel, 'n proses gaan post office toe om vorms gaan invul en al daai. En daar's 'n stadium wat ek raak moeg voor, maar ek kan nie moeg raak vir my mense nie. En want ek het 6 kleinkinders. Nou dit ek is baie in gemeenskap met die skole daar, Ritenbos skool veral. En ek het huis nou die dag van my kollega gewys op my selfoon kom van die juffrou af 'n boodskap dat die ouers moet asseblief tog sorg hulle uit te doen om hulle kindertjies broodjies in te sit. Maar as daai persone die het nie, wat dan? Van die voedingaksie, hulle het nie genoeg support by die skool, by Ritenbos skool nie. So ek dink ek kan nie die bill support as dit so gaan nie.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mrs. Brandt. Ma'am in the corner? Yeah.
Hi, good day. My name is Joanne Muller. I work for an organization called the Mitchell's Plain Advice Office. I've been listening to all of these things. And you know what? If you give one of the salaries to an organization or civil organization like us, we will prove to you we service more than that amount every year. So maybe you must look at other ways because the civil service is not fulfilling their duties. And maybe you must give it to organizations so that we can service our people. Thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am. So we didn't get your surname, ma'am? Joanna? Joanna Muller. There was another hand. Yes, the gentleman on the side.
Yes, I'm Hendrik Swats. I'm from Atlantis, and I'm from the substructure of the command authorities of the traditional Namakoi. What I'd like to say is I would like to see that our pensioners' money would be increased, our disability people also, and that more money to be invest in our youth for their education. Because I'm not supporting this idea of this bill, and this is how I see the way forward for our people, because really our people are suffering at the moment. And if I look at our youth, even my son is at college at the moment. He wants to study for a mechanical engineer. And what I worried about is when he's finished with his studies, should he get a job as a mechanical engineer because of this affirmative action stuff that is going on in our country. This is something that I would like to see to be scrapped, and that our youth can get jobs, and that our old people, our pensioners, that they are looked after, and also our disability people, so that yeah, this is what I'd like to see. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Once again, I'd like to thank everyone for their input, and I'd like to thank you for coming. Let me just see here quickly. There are refreshments available in the lounge. If you go out the door, straight down the passage, and turn left, there's refreshments available for everyone there. Thank you very much for coming. As I said, your inputs are appreciated and will be heard. And if you have any further email submissions, you can come to Ms. Kamish Ahmad, and she'll gladly provide you with her email address.
And everybody that makes submissions can just come check if their names are right. And
Yeah. If you would like to just check that your names, we've recorded your names correctly, whoever's made submissions, then we will, if you could do that for us, please, we'd appreciate it. Yeah, yes. Sorry? Oh, question. Right behind you.
So my question is just, when will be the closing date for the written submissions? The final date?
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be after the last hearing, which is the 18th of October.
Okay, thank you.
So if you could put your submissions in by then, it would be appreciated. Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.